Right, so we're down to the last day of the festival now, and on the last day, on my rotation, I was on Benny's. Now, as it stands, Ryan Lingard is winning the festival with 4 section wins. He's fished a brilliant week. And then there's 4 or 5 of us on 3 section wins, which is myself, Ben Fisk, Andy Bennett, Johnny Jowett and Matt Pilley. So it's all to play for really, but it is a section win is an absolute must in order to get in the top 3, I reckon. So in the draw bag I drew 48 on Benny's, which is the last peg before the point looking into the small bay, but the problem is I've got Matt Pilley on peg 51, which is the last peg in my section, just on the other side of the point in the big bay, which is, out of all the anglers to draw that peg, I thought, it's going to be hard work. I need to win my section. So looking at it in that way, I thought, well, in order for me to win my section, I'm not going to win my section with just small fish alone, because it isn't as productive that side of the point as the other point, simply because the expanse of water, where Matt is, it's just holding a larger amount of fish. And on paper, it has been a better peg. So I fished it a little bit different. I decided to fish for the big fish down the margins. I spoke to Les Marshall in the morning, and he advised me that I could catch some big fish down the margins. And it was quite an interesting match, really. So I'll let you watch the video, and I'll give you a rundown of what happens afterwards.
Skimmer. Swimming round the lake, searching for some bait. Got any big ones yet, Matt? Got any big ones yet? No, that's the biggest one I've had out there. You want me? No. What you are? Come on, Toddy. Get feeding. Get some bait in. Come on, son. Enjoy, Matt. How's the little man on the point going on?
Not getting any fish down edge now, Matt. No. You are?
He's Toddy. Oh, what the floor. What's with a bloody sandal? Yeah, we'll go then, Nick, I think. You forget how strong and big your arms are. See that size you know? Ooh. 38.4. Well. head. It goes with the head, alright. 21.6. What's that at the minute? 16.2. £2 in the kit. I did it, it went. 36.6.
What?
36.6.
So, how did it all fare? Well, to be honest with you, it was a real surprise. I did expect to catch the odd big fish down the margin. And what happened was, at the start of the match, I fed my edge line straight away, because what happens with on bennies is the big fish don't get opportunity to feed because the small fish get to the bait first. So when the big carp do feed down the margins, they come quite aggressively down the edge and confidently, and the water's really clear. And at the start of the match, as soon as the whistle went, the first thing I did was I put a pot of ground bait, maybe a top kick to my right in the really shallow water. I only had I reckon about 12 inches of water, but I could see my bait on the bottom. And I've set 2 rigs up out in front of me, fishing a top kit in 2, top kit in 3, which was a jigger rig, maybe set at 18 inches, I'd say, between 10 inches and 18 inches, obviously, because it allows you to search the water column a bit more with a jigger. And I used a fixed float, but a jigger was by far the best rig. And I might have only had, 3 or 4 fish on the jigger, just fishing a hard formal pellet on a noose, so I can just catch more fish on a single pellet. And I might have only had just 3 or 4 fish, and I've looked down the edge and I've got a 12-pound carp over my ground bait. So I fit my edge rig up, put a grain of corn on, dropped it in front of it and got it. And that was maybe 20 minutes into the match, I got that fish. So happy days, really, to be honest with you. It was a really good bonus start for me. However, the problem is I was catching short, but I got roped into fishing down the edge, simply because they were coming down on a regular basis, but they were hard to catch, harder than what I thought they would be, because the water's clear, so they were a bit spooky. Anyway, I ended up catching quite steady out in front of me, and then the last 2 hours, my shallow line completely died. I was catching the odd fish, but they were only small fish, so I felt I needed to be catching more regular, and I wasn't. So I just decided to fish down the edge, and I may have moved further down the bank in maybe 5 sections towards where it goes around the corner. A bit of a blind spot, and obviously with the water being clear, I felt that might be the area where they might feel a bit more confident down the edge. And I've caught a few carp, and I've had some big carp as well. So I've ended up, all I've done is I've fed green swim stim, marine halibut and some red krill and a bit of brown krill in the mix, and fished a single grain of corn, fished proper gear, obviously, because they're wild carp that hardly ever see any bait, i.e. they hardly get caught, so they're not that spooky. I think the only reason why they're spooky is because the water's clear, and just a single grain of corn on a 14 hook. And I've ended up with £177. Now the interesting thing is, with Benny's, you can't get roped into watching people because everybody's catching fish. And I thought it was going to be really close between myself and Matt. And Matt was the same. Matt's ended up having to go down the edge, knowing that I was catching bigger fish, and he was trying to catch me up. Obviously, because of the size of fish I was catching, and his side of the point wasn't as good as mine. And Matt's ended up with £157, and I've won the section with £177. So I was really pleased with that. I went with the intentions to win my section, but I thought to win my section from that peg would have been difficult. But I think those big fish have really helped me down the edge. Could I have won the section without those big fish? I don't know. I think it'd have been a pretty tough day for me, to be honest with you. So the only thing is, Ryan hadn't drawn a really good peg. He's in contention of winning the festival, and Paul Todd, who was on the point, is in Ryan's section and he's catching big fish down the margins. And I'm watching Toddy catch these fish, and I'm thinking, if Toddy beats Ryan, I'll win the festival. And that's how tight it is sometimes. And it was a bit unlucky for Paul because he was fishing down the margins and the fish were taking him around the corner because he was on the other adjacent point, and they were taking him between the legs of the platform, the platform on the point, and he lost loads of fish. He must have lost over £100 of fish. And he's ended up with £140. And Ryan Lingard, again, has fished a brilliant match. He's won his section with £160, so it was close. So anyway, Ryan ended up winning the festival, 5 section wins. And I ended up with 4 section wins and a second. But obviously, because Majoppa was a second, that put me in second position. I finished second overall. Then Andy Bennett also won his section on the last match. So he ended up with 4 section wins and a third. Ben Fisk won his section as well. He ended up with 4 section wins and a third, but Andy Bennett beat him on weight. And Johnny Jarrett also won his section. So Johnny Jarrett ended up 5th. So the weights were just unbelievable, and the fishing was fantastic. I think I had over £780 of fish over the 5 days. I just thought it was a really well run festival. Again, thanks to OMAR Leisure Homes for sponsoring the event, putting some money in, which was brilliant. The turnouts are great, the fishing was great. It was a really good week all round. I think everybody really enjoyed it and can't wait for next year. So happy days.